I know what they say about me. Every time the sky turns dark and the first drops hit the asphalt, someone in the commentary box mentions my name. Every time the track is soaked and the field is in chaos, people remember I exist. But the moment the sun comes out, they forget. That is the strangest thing about my career. I beat Valentino Rossi. I finished ahead of Casey Stoner. I stood on the podium in the most competitive era MotoGP has ever seen, riding the weakest bike on the grid. And yet most fans can only remember one thing about me. Rain. They called me a rain specialist. At first it sounded like a compliment, a recognition of something I could do that others could not. But over time that label became a cage. Because once people decide they understand you, they stop looking. They stop watching what you do on a dry Sunday afternoon. They only tune in when the clouds roll in. So let me ask you something. Was that really all I was? A man who could only win when the sky was falling? Or did people just remember the part that was easiest to remember and forget everything else? To understand where that label came from, you have to go back to the beginning, back to where I started. I grew up in Brisbane, Australia. If you know anything about Australian motorcycle racing, you know that country only had room for one golden boy at a time. That was Casey Stoner, not me. Stoner was the prodigy, the kid everyone talked about, the name that made headlines before he even reached the Premier class. I was the other Australian, the rider from Queensland that journalists mentioned in the last paragraph, if they mentioned me at all. I took a different path. While Stoner climbed through the Grand Prix ladder, 1, 2, 5cc, 250cc. I went to World Superbike, raced for Honda 10K from 2003 to 2005, won races, stood on podiums, proved I could fight with the best production-based riders on the planet. But here is the thing about Superbike. In the eyes of the MotoGP paddock, it is the second division. You can win every weekend and they will still look at you like a tourist when you walk into the MotoGP garage for the first time. That is exactly what happened in 2006 when I signed with Suzuki, the team nobody bet on. I had never been the first name anyone called anywhere. But then something started to appear. Not a victory, not speed, rain. It did not take long for people to notice a pattern. Every time rain hit the track, my results climbed. Races where the favorites fought just to stay upright, I carved through the field like the water was not even there. Every wet session, every soaked qualifying, my name moved higher on the timing screens. The paddock noticed. Commentators started using a phrase that sounded like respect, rain specialist. It felt good at first, like they were recognizing a real skill, something that separated me from the rest of the grid. But labels have a way of hardening. What starts as a description slowly becomes a definition. And before I knew it, he is fast in the rain had quietly turned into something else. He is only fast in the rain. Nobody said it to my face. They did not have to. I could hear it in the way they talked about me, in the way race previews were written before a dry weekend. My name was never on the list of contenders. I only appeared in one sentence and it always started the same way. If it rains, watch out for Vermeulen. If. That single word told me everything. Rossi studied Stoner, Stoner studied Rossi, Pedrosa prepared for both of them. The top riders built their strategies around each other. Nobody built a strategy around me. Not because I was slow, because in their minds, they had already figured me out, filed away, categorized, the rain guy, sunny forecast, nothing to worry about. That is the thing about being underestimated in MotoGP. Being hated means they still think about you. Being feared means you live in their heads, but being dismissed means you do not exist in their calculations at all. You could see it in the press conferences. Questions directed at the riders beside me, not at me. Television coverage cutting to my garage only when clouds appeared on the horizon. They did not need to laugh out loud. The way they looked past me said enough. But there was something nobody accounted for. Not the rain. The machine I was riding. Here is something most fans never think about. In 2006 and 2007, the MotoGP grid was not an even playing field. Ducati had the Desma Sedici raw power in its purest form. Yamaha had the M1, the most balanced bike in the paddock. Honda threw unlimited resources at the RC212V. And then there was Suzuki. The GSVR was an inline four in a world moving toward V4s. Less horsepower, less top speed, fewer engineers, a smaller budget. The gap was not in one area, it was everywhere. Power, electronics, braking, corner, exit traction. But I did not just ride that bike, I developed it Every session, I fed data back to the engineers, tested setups, pushed the GSVR to its limits, tried to close a gap that money alone could not fix. I did not have the best machine. I was trying to make it good enough. And then round 4 of the 2007 season, we arrived at Le Mans. The forecast said rain. For the first time that year, I smiled. Le Mans, round 4, Sunday morning. The sky had been threatening all weekend, and when we woke up on race day, the threat became a promise. Rain, not a drizzle, proper rain. The kind that turns a racetrack into a river and separates the brave from the reckless. On the grid, the names were all there. Stoner leading the championship on the Ducati, Rossi on the Yamaha, Pedrosa on the Honda, Hayden, the reigning world champion, and then there was me, mid-grid, Suzuki, the name nobody mentioned in the pre-race predictions. When I looked up at the sky from pit lane, I knew today was my day. Lights out, chaos. The first laps were a survival test, water everywhere, spray blinding the riders behind. The track gave you just enough grip to feel confident and then took it away without warning. One mistake, one moment of overconfidence, and you were sliding into the gravel. The favourites rode carefully, too carefully. They had championships to protect, points to manage, risks to calculate. I had nothing to lose. I started picking them off one by one, not with wild lunges or desperate dives into corners, with precision. I read the wet surface the way some people read a book. I knew where the grip was hiding. I knew when to roll on the throttle and when to wait that extra half second. While others fought the rain, I worked with it. By mid-race, I was at the front. And the gap was growing. The thing about wet races is that they strip everything away. Horsepower does not matter when the tyres cannot put it down. Factory budgets do not matter when the electronics cannot save you from a high side. In the rain, it is just the rider and the surface. Nothing else. And that was my territory. The final laps were not dramatic. There was no last corner battle, no desperate fight to the line, just control. Pure, absolute control, the kind that comes from thousands of laps in conditions most riders pray they never face. The checkered flag came down. I crossed the line first. When I pulled into Parc Fermé and took my helmet off, I saw something I had never seen before. The way they looked at me had changed. Not the fans, not the media, the other riders, the engineers. The people who had filed me away as the rain guy, for one moment, just one, I was not a specialist. I was a MotoGP race winner. That race at Le Mans should have been a beginning. Instead, it turned out to be the brightest moment before everything went dark. My knee had been a problem for a while, not the kind of injury that ends your career in one crash. The kind that chips away at you one surgery at a time. Every operation meant weeks off the bike. Every recovery meant missing test sessions, losing development time, falling behind on a machine that was already behind. I came back each time, but each time I came back a little less than before. Not slower in my mind, slower in my body. The knee could not take the braking forces, could not handle the lean angles the way it used to. The gap between what I wanted to do and what my body allowed me to do grew wider with every race. And while I was fighting my own body, Suzuki was fighting something bigger. The budget shrank, the engineers left. The bike that was already the weakest on the grid fell further behind. 2008 was difficult, 2009 was impossible, and then it was over. No farewell race, no tribute on the pit wall, no lap of honor. I did not crash out in a blaze of fire. I just stopped appearing on the entry list quietly. The way a name disappears from a conversation when people stop finding it relevant. Not every career ends with a headline. Some just fade out. The same way I faded from people's minds every time the sun came out. So was I really just a rain specialist? Maybe. Maybe that is the simplest version of my story, the version that fits in a comment section. Chris Vermeulen, rain guy, 1 win, Le Mans, wet race. But simple does not mean true. I won a MotoGP race on the weakest bike in the field. I fought wheel to wheel with world champions in conditions that terrified them. And on dry Sundays, when the Suzuki was outpaced by everything around it, I still showed up, still pushed, still fought for every point that nobody remembers. The label outlasted my career. And when something gets repeated long enough, it stops being an opinion. It becomes the truth. But here is what the truth actually looks like. I was fast in the rain, and I was fast when the sun was out. People just chose to remember one half and forget the other. I know they will always remember me for the rain, and maybe that is fine. But if that is the only thing they remember, then they were never really watching.